Bruce DuMont back, and this is a reminder to everybody. Obviously, this coming week, we have the great debate without Donald Trump taking place in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. WIND in Chicago is going to be carrying that debate, and there's going to be a pregame preview show, and there's going to be a reaction show after the debate, and they have asked me to monitor that. So I will be anchoring that with other guests from around the country and around the station. Again, and it'll be a well-balanced presentation. I'll promise a well-balanced presentation of who did well and who did not do well in the debate coming up. It's a big one coming up. Donald Trump not going there. Clay, was that a good idea for him not to show up at the big debate?
Maybe a good idea for him, but not a good idea for the rest of it. We as American citizens, the voting public, deserve the opportunity to see him, even though we see him all the time. He's constantly in the media, served 4 years as the president, but we deserve to see him in a live debate with the other candidates. But probably for him as a benefit, sure. I mean, it keeps him from being opened up to being questioned by the rest of the candidates.
Yeah. Judith, what do you think?
No, I think it makes perfect sense for him not to be in the debate. And he's going to be giving a podcast, as far as I understand it.
Yeah,
with,
an interview. It's already in the can with Tucker Carlson. I think that's sort of a cheap shot to try to do that. But anyway, that's his decision, and it'll be up to the others. Is there anyone out there, and again, this is for everybody, even the Democrats, I don't know whether you want to weigh in on this or not, is there anyone out there in this Republican field that you feel you would like to know a little more about because you haven't heard much about them? Any names come up, or are you just locked into the Democratic folks?
Well, Vivek, I mean, he's a very interesting candidate. He's a very smart guy. He's got some very interesting things to say. I think it'd be interesting to hear him debate with some of the other candidates.
Do you believe that Republican primary voters in the end would vote for a 37-year-old man who has not held public office before?
No, but
Okay.
they do need to get to know him, and they should listen to him because he's got a lot of very interesting, substantive things to say.
One of the things that he has to say is that there should be the use of the military, U.S. military, to perhaps even engage with Mexico and the cartels in Mexico. There should be a military operation. Do you think that's a good idea? I'm going to ask you, and then I want to ask the Colonel on that. Is that a good idea?
Is it? Yeah, I think I do think it's a good idea. I actually think former President Trump believes it's a good idea as well.
Right. Colonel, what do you think of that idea? As a member of the military, is it time to take off the gloves and maybe use the military to stop the flow of fentanyl and human trafficking from Mexico?
So it's muddy waters because now you're talking about law enforcement versus, a combat operation. We do have portions of the military that do act in a law enforcement capacity. The Coast Guard does it all the time. But now you're asking the United States military to enforce law, international law versus, a traditional combat role. That would take a significant culture shift and I think a lot of training before our military would be ready to do that. Now, if their role is purely, kicking indoors like we were doing in Iraq and Afghanistan for a very long time, could we pick up that operation? Sure, we could. But at the end of the day, I don't think a law enforcement role is necessarily where we need to be. But I think the number one question is, who would be in charge of that operation? Would it be U.S. forces working for the Mexican government? Who's the star that's in charge of that? Is it an American general? Is it a Russian or a Mexican general? You've got to determine chain of command on that very, very early. And I'll be honest with you, I don't see Americans working necessarily for a Mexican military authority.
Right. Rush, what are your thoughts on this? This is one of those sort of far out ideas that Raviswamy has, but do you think it's an idea worth pursuing if the continued appearance is that we're not doing very well in stopping the flow of illegal people and illegal fentanyl into the country. Well, I mean, what do we do? Do we just talk it to death?
Well, I'll say Clay is 100% correct. The biggest mistake we'll make is trying to get our military involved in what we're dealing with is gang warfare in Mexico. I mean, there's other ways to approach it, definitely not the military. And by the way, if you don't mind, Bruce, I do want to go back to your original question about the debate, people to watch.
Sure.
This is a critical debate because there needs to be one or two candidates that have to be that darn good to make everyday Republicans who love Trump forget about him. That's what needs to happen. And the two folks I would like to see, we already know DeSantis is around, even though lately the poll numbers are starting to go low for him. But I would love to see Tim Scott out of South Carolina and Chris Christie as well. I would like to see them step up. They look like two very good candidates. But like I said, right now, they're going to have to really show that they are very strong, interesting. That's right. The key word is interesting. And make them forget about Donald Trump. A very big task.
Well, Chris Christie is an interesting candidate. I don't think he's going to make the Trump supporters forget about Donald Trump. It's only going to reinforce them. I think he's got the least likely chance of progressing to the nomination, even though he's going to be good for the debate this coming week. And frankly, I think Mike Pence is emerging as a guy that maybe has some interesting things to say. But someone's got to get strong, and you know, they've got to step up, as you say. And I mean, I've tried to like Nikki Haley from the beginning. I saw her on TV today. She's just a picture that doesn't develop for me, even though I like her. I like what she says. It's just I don't see her as a leader, not just because she's a woman, just because of the things that she's saying and the way that she's saying them. And last week on this program, I touted Doug Burgum, the governor of North Dakota, as someone that I wanted to watch because I thought he had sort of the makings of maybe a legitimate candidacy. I got to tell you, I saw him on Meet the Press today. I mean, he was terrible. He didn't answer a damn question, and I think the questions that were being asked by the moderator of the program, my good friend Chuck Todd, I thought they were very good. And literally, he didn't answer a single question, and to me, he eliminated himself from my contention this morning on Meet the Press, and the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, who followed him, I think he started, even though he's friendly with the governor of North Dakota, he sort of ripped him apart by just blowing a great opportunity to set him up and make himself presentable for a debate. And man, talk about a guy who I think stumbled out of the gate. I mean, he stumbled out of the gate today when I was looking for this guy to sort of shine come debate night. But I don't think it's likely to happen, although he is going to be at the debate. We'll be back with more questions, more comments, more talk about politics. I'm Bruce DuMont. Thank you for joining us. 1-800-723-8289 is the phone number. 1-800-723-8289.
Goodbye, bench press. Adios, squat rack. Fare thee well, kettlebell.
Hey, Kellen, need a spot?
No, Jake from State Farm. I'm just saying goodbye to my pricey gym membership.
What? Don't give up what you love. State Farm has options like insuring your home and ride with great rates on both.
Nice. Hey, can I buy you a protein shake or a granola bar or...
For surprisingly great rates, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Call or go to statefarm.com for a quote today.
Going back to school as a working adult doesn't mean you have to sacrifice a high-quality education. Purdue University, a top 10 public university, took its innovative thinking to a new level when it created Purdue University Global for working adults. Discover innovative, practical ways to earn your degree online and advance your career. Purdue Global has already awarded more than 1 million credits for prior learning, which means you can save nearly half the cost of your bachelor's. See how close you are to finishing your degree at purdueglobal.edu. That's purdueglobal.edu.
It's a bully. but we aren't afraid of a fight. It's elusive, but our focus never fades. It's deadly, but we were born to defeat cancer. You may not have heard of us, but our work has helped millions impacted by cancer. We are the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. We are leaders in advancing breakthroughs in immunotherapy, genomics, and personalized medicine. This research saves lives. After 65 years of fighting blood cancers, we've arrived at a game-changing belief. The cures for cancer are in our blood. The drugs and treatments we've developed for blood cancers have helped people affected by many different types of cancers. We are the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Beating cancer is in our blood. Learn more at LLS.org.
If you're talking, they will hear you.
We all want our kids to grow up safe and healthy, so we show them how. And we tell them with honest conversations that let them know what we expect. Not just one time, but every chance we get. That's especially important when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. Kids not only need to know the dangers and how to avoid them, they need to hear it often from you. And when it comes to pain medications, opioids, they need to know that they should never be taken without a prescription and never shared with friends or family. It's dangerous and illegal. So talk with your kids and guide them through the challenges of growing up safe and healthy. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
So talk, they hear you. You can do it if you try.
Oh, he really loves it. He'll stop beating you one of these days.
Bruce DuMont back, and Judy, you were saying during the break, you were talking about Robert Kennedy, your assessment of Robert Kennedy's position and likelihood of success in the Democratic primary.
Well, I don't think he's going to win. They're not even going to let him debate. They're not going to let him do anything. They keep putting a muzzle on him. And as you pointed out, they're putting him in danger because they won't give him Secret Service protection. And I listen to him and he talks about his Democrat bona fides. He talks about Roosevelt. He talks about, his uncle and his father. And he makes some very good points about that. But that's not the Democratic Party today. It isn't. And this Democratic Party wants him out of the way.
Mark, you're a person that has challenged the authority of the Democratic Party over the last 12, 15 years you've been on this program. Where do you stand now on either Robert Kennedy, or is there anyone else out there that could challenge Joe Biden and should challenge Joe Biden?
Yeah, I cannot imagine that Joe Biden is going to be the candidate. I have trouble.
I have to believe that.
Right.
Too.
I'm just waiting, for some establishment machine to come pop in who they think it should be. Robert Kennedy, I just was watching that hearing where he was being, basically censored. It was a hearing about censorship.
And they were censoring him.
And they wouldn't let him talk. And I thought, this looks so terrible. And so I think that's really a problem for the Democrats right now. They can't get out of their own way sometimes. And just, let Trump be Trump, and let Robert Kennedy talk.
I mean, I kind of agree with that. And the other thing is, would the world come to an end if Donald Trump could just run for president like he was going to do before, and he ran and he either won or he lost? Period. Without all these shenanigans and all this crazy stuff and all the indictments and the indictment fatigue and everything else. It's crazy. Let him run. What's going to happen if he wins? Well, he was president for 4 years. It was pretty good for a while.
Here's the concern I would have.
Right.
He runs. He wins. Okay. What if he runs and loses? Is he going to talk about the shenanigans in the 2024 election? Is he going to continue to to fail to acknowledge to the American people that he lost an election? And do we just keep going on and on with this thing? It just has no end to it?
I really don't think so. I don't want to relitigate the 2020 election any more than I want to relitigate January 6th, okay? But there are reasons and there is evidence. And if these trials come up, you're going to see some evidence, particularly in Georgia. But I don't want to get into that. I don't think he will do that. I think that they are ready for what they perceive to be problems for 2024. And if he loses, he loses. And that'll be it.
Okay.
So I want to go back. Before the break, you were asking about sort of external threats to the U.S., and I really feel the threat is internal. I think right now we have, are we educating our people? Are they healthy? Are we caring for them? Are they able to live well in their old age? I'm not hearing that conversation. I'll say this to the listeners out there. What are your expenses like right now? Mm-hmm. I know personally, my homeowner's insurance increased by 141%. Never filed a claim. Auto insurance up 40%. Groceries astronomically high. And I don't, I can't believe Joe Biden's talking about Bidenomics. How dare he in this economy? And I'm a Democrat. And so I do think, we've eroded faith in our institutions. We've got a media that is difficult to trust. We have a fragmented culture more so than we have ever have. Mm-hmm. And so I think we don't have to worry about China. We have to worry about ourselves and getting back to some core principles. And I think that's where I like Vivek, because he's at least advancing some principles. He says, okay, well, we're about family. If we're going to take religion out, he basically says people are losing faith in religion. Well, let's put something else back in the mix. Mm-hmm. So he's got some ideas. Trump, I don't even hear his platform anymore. No.
Well, I mean, he does have a series of videos that he releases periodically that has his positions. He released something last week about his vision for the economy. He does that periodically. If you go to his website, you'll be able to hear all.
I don't think he's getting through on those points.
Well, he is.
He's like a Donald One Note about his legal problems. Well, I'd like to hear more about these things, because I've not seen them, but I would like to hear more. I would like to know his answer to the question about the future of whether whether the Chinese should continue to buy land. I mean, does that concern you, Colonel, that the Chinese are buying strategic land in and around military bases, allegedly?
I mean, it's one of the hazards of our republic. We're not going to, take away rights or speculatively take away rights from people because we believe that it's a threat. We did that in the 40s with the Japanese. I'm pretty sure nobody wants to go back in that direction. I do think we probably need to be a little bit more deliberate in corporate company research, who parent companies are, who their investors are, where money is actually coming from. I think that probably we need to do a better job of that. I don't think that deliberately the Chinese government, we're allowing the Chinese government to buy land in America. I think they're going about it in a way that, makes it seem illegal, or at least, unseemly. And we probably just as a nation need to do a better job of understanding who is investing and purchasing. Not necessarily controlling, stopping, prohibiting, as long as it's done legally.
But there are laws about that kind of stuff, about foreign investment in the United States, not just from China. I mean, you have to fill out, when you buy real estate in this country, you have to fill out certain forms relating to foreign investment. So we do know that the Chinese, not necessarily Chinese who are here, I mean, this has nothing to do with what we did in the 40s with the Japanese. And it's really, I mean, it's a very specious argument to throw that out there. This is about foreign investment in the United States by Chinese individuals who may have connections to the CCP, who are buying land next to military bases. I don't think we want that. So we need to be a little careful about that.
There needs to be a law to prohibit that, you're saying? Or is it that
I
they
think
have the ability to do
we
it?
have laws to prohibit that.
Why have they not been enforced?
Do I have to sound like one of your former guests
Go
who
ahead.
said that somebody in the White House is currently owned by China?
Oh, really?
Oh,
You think it's
really?
that,
How much money do you think? I mean, look, you know, there has been so much talk about evidence, bank records, money transfers, evidence of all these corporations where you run the money from one place to another. So much coming from China, okay? A complete and utter lie during the presidential debate. My son never took a penny from China. Well, we all know that that's not true because his son admitted it in court when he went in on his plea agreement. There is money that came to the Biden family from China. There are questions about their situation with the Chinese government. And these are problems that we have to deal with. And yes,
So
I do believe China is our biggest problem.
I just want to make sure that I'm hearing you clearly now.
Okay.
You're basically saying that because of these connections, real or perceived, between the Chinese Communist Party and Joe Biden, either through Hunter Biden or directly, you believe that the President of the United States is siding with China in a lot of issues of national security.
I do. Do you have another reason why he let a balloon go all the way across the United States before they blew it up someplace else?
Rush?
I mean, there's a lot. Why do we have people training in Cuba, for instance?
I want to get Rush's response. Rush, that was a startling answer by Judith. What is your response to her startling answer?
I would say it's more something that now the Biden presidency is concocting with the Chinese government, taking money from the Chinese government equally during Donald Trump's presidency, where Donald Trump was taking money from Russia, working business deals, golf courses, hotels, the same level of accusations. So if we're going to go that route, then I guess we could say the same for Donald Trump. These are things you really never know when it comes to following the money. It's not fair to say that, and there's really no what I call hardcore evidence to suggest that.
First of all, the accusations made against Donald Trump have all been shown to have been totally bogus. The accusations which are being made currently
Which
are based
accusations
on.
are we talking about?
Well, you ought to
Calling
listen
the
to
Secretary
something
of State
besides
of Georgia
You
to
ought
tell
to
him
listen
to
to
overturn
something.
the election.
You ought to listen to something.
Stopping Pence.
You
stopping
need-
Pence
you need
from,
to listen to-
solidifying the election. Like how is this? Are we talking?
You
here?
need
That
to
is
listen to
completely
something
illegal.
other than CNN, and you need to listen to the fact that there are bank records,
Those
money
are facts.
transfers.
Those are not CNN.
Yeah, no, they are facts, and they are going into the Biden family from China. You need to look at that. That's got nothing to do with calling Secretary of State Raffensperger and telling him, you should stop
equally-
being lazy and go look at this evidence which we presented
being
to
lazy.
you.
I'm also
I'm
going
not
by
telling you
his
you're
son-in-law,
lazy. I'm
Kushner,
telling
going
you.
back and forth to Saudi Arabia, selling weapons to Saudi Arabia as well.
Oh,
All
please.
the weapons deals that Donald Trump was doing as well. He was benefiting from that as well. How are we going to give Biden, take him out on that when Trump has the worst record when it comes to taking money from different countries?
Okay, when we
That's
come
why
back,
he's the indictment king of-
when we
he's
come
the one
back,
that's going to jail,
one
not
second.
President Biden.
Unbelievable.
everybody go back to your corners. We're going to break. I'm Bruce DuMont. Don't go away.
At Jersey Mike's, you can elevate any sub by getting the juice. Red wine, vinegar, and an olive oil blend. It's how a Jersey Mike's sub gets its exquisite zing and how bites get boosted. The juice adds a certain something extra, an exclamation on top of the freshly sliced meats and toppings. The kind of exclamation you can eat. Order Jersey Mike's subs on our mobile app and get delivery right to your home or pick up from your nearest Jersey Mike's sub location. Jersey Mike's, be a sub above.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling on it.
The dad joke. Corny, groan-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
What did the buffalo say when he dropped his son off for school? Bye, son.
So take a moment to make your kid laugh, because dad jokes rule. Make your kid laugh today. Go to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
When it comes to vaping, the truth can get clouded. So let's make it clear. Vaping is not safe for kids, teens, or young adults. It's just not.
Because vaping can put microscopic particles into your lungs.
And dangerous things like metals and volatile organic compounds into your body.
And nicotine, the same highly addictive substance found in regular cigarettes.
Nicotine can harm a person's brain development through their mid-20s,
affecting learning, memory, attention, and impulse control, and priming the brain for other addictions.
Vaping products also come in kid-friendly flavors that can make them appealing to youth.
And many kids also use other drugs, like marijuana, in vaping devices.
With appealing flavors, high nicotine levels, and lots of promotion on social media,
many kids think vaping is harmless, but it's not.
So talk to your kids about the risks of vaping, because when you talk, they hear you.
For more information, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Bruce DuMont back on Beyond the Beltway. Last week, President Biden, after a conference in Camp David with South Korea and with Japan, announced a new security agreement between the nations. And I want to get your reaction, Colonel Novak, to the significance of that agreement.
I think any cooperation between those two nations is huge. It's obviously you've got centuries in that triangle of Korea, Japan, China. There's centuries and centuries where one was attacking, or they were in combat with each other in some form or fashion, dominated the other. So to see in this day and age those two nations working together, I think it's fantastic. It's great cooperation for the Pacific Rim and great security for everybody in the region. It's not just limited to Japan and South Korea, but that's a far-reaching agreement because it will affect everybody, even out to Australia, New Zealand, but everybody in that Southwest Pacific area.
A couple of weeks ago in this program, we had an extensive conversation about what military role the United States would play if China decides that it is going to invade Taiwan. And the general feeling was that there wouldn't be any real fighting. It would be more of an economic war that went on, but that the United States really would not weigh in any significant way to engage the Chinese militarily. Do you agree with that assessment that came out of that conversation?
I do. I think if there was U.S. military involvement in a Chinese attack into Taiwan, it would be by purely bad luck. I think if we had a U.S. ship moving through the straits in the vicinity, a U.S. aircraft in the air that just happened to get caught up in the middle of something. But I don't think we would jump in the middle of that militarily to stop it, alter it, or in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm. One other question. At the very beginning of the COVID issue with the United States and the world, we had a guest who was an author who wrote a book about the reliance that the United States, primarily in the area of medical issues, medical product, had relied on China. And I'm wondering, I've been trying to track down that author for sort of an update, but can you or anyone on the panel this evening describe or discuss any significant change in that reliance that has taken place since COVID, entered our shores and entered our mindset? Is there any improvement? I mean, do we rely less on China for medical related product and issues and merchandise and mechanics? Colonel, I'll start with you. Do you know any such report that's come out that says that we are less reliant on China in those areas than we were, 6 years ago?
Specifically, medical, Bruce, I honestly don't know. I can't imagine that things have changed, going back to the conversation before, and I'm not trying to start a firefight again between two of your guests, but, the influence of China on the current administration, I can't see them lessening their commerce in any way, shape, or form in the United States, COVID or no COVID.
Okay, good question. We have callers on the line. Let's go to David, listening to us in the great state of Washington. Go ahead, David. You're on Beyond the Beltway.
Hey, Bruce. Thanks. Well, just a few different comments. When I heard the guest mentioning like a comparison, which to me is insane, of what is being revealed about the Biden transactions and Trump and any financial indications from his presidency. It's baffling to me that someone can even have the opinions that he was pushing. It's like, how many people have like a dozen foreign accounts and various LLCs, and most people, when they need to make a money transaction, just move it from one place to the other, and that's the end of it. They don't have to have multiple different layers to move money from one point to the other. Generally, that's thought of as money laundering, and as more and more evidence comes out with aliases, why do you have to have fake names? Well, we got to refer to somebody as the big guy. We can't call somebody by their real name, and how else can we refer to them? Well, we're going to use aliases.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just the media has caused, just over the last couple of election cycles, for this whole thing to turn in. All election cycles now have just become nightmares to be part of, because they politicize things so much, and the propaganda coming out, which it's propaganda. A lot of people think it's what you say, but propaganda can also be what you forbid people from watching.
Mm-hmm.
And if you watch CNN, MSNBC, and like Fox come together, because I have a way to watch multiple things on different TVs, you see so often that the left-leaning stations will not air things. They won't let their viewers see things that they don't want you to see, because they don't want the viewer to possibly switch their opinion and say, oh, you know what, that's a good point.
But David, let me just stop you for a second. That is a brilliant point you're making, and there's been so much said about the attack on democracy. In fact, that's one of the favorite things for the Democrats to talk about, is that Donald Trump is responsible for the attack on democracy because of what happened on January 6th and his reactions post-presidential. But I would say, and I don't think I'm too far off here, I would say that the greatest challenge to democracy now is the way the national media conducts its business. I think they are more of a threat to democracy than anything that Donald Trump or anyone has uttered, left or right, because they have not taken their role in society seriously. It needs to be reassessed. They have to have some real significant soul searching about why their job is viewed in such a negative way by almost half of the American people. I mean, they really are doing a horrible, horrible job.
Well, during those January 6th hearings, all the networks aired all of it. Fox played both sides. They let you hear everything, even though you're only getting a one-sided narrative during those hearings. You was like hearing the prosecution the whole time, but like during many of the issues from the other side, when the Republicans were holding hearings, you saw multiple times where Fox aired the whole thing, just like they aired the January 6th committee. But MSNBC and CNN would go to their panel whenever the Republicans were talking, and then would go back to the hearing when a Democrat was talking. And that was just ridiculous.
And the same thing, by the way, the same thing can be said for the coverage of the whistleblowers, what the whistleblowers were saying on Fox. And again, it was crickets, at least on CNN, and in many cases on the network newscast. I understand from my call screener that you also wanted to talk about Vivek and Robert Kennedy Jr.
Well, yeah, I just think Vivek, I've been following him for about 3 years, which surprises most people. They're like, well, where did you ever hear of him? Well, anybody who watches CNBC regularly, it's a business network, talks about stocks all day long, but he's a fairly regular, on there at least once a month or so. He'd be on, especially through, even COVID and everything. And you could just see what just a brilliant rising star he was because of his intelligence. I mean, he's quick on his feet. His brain thinks very fast. He's got good responses. You can't, you can't catch him in a question. He's got good, cogent responses to everything. And I disagreed with Judy a bit when she said that Republicans wouldn't vote for him. I'll vote for anyone, regardless of your age, as long as you're eligible to run for president. If you can show that you are cognate, your brain is functioning, you're intelligent, rational, you can use common sense, I'll vote for you all day long. I mean, he put a post out recently where he showed like his top 10 things. He called it truth and said, these are the 10 things that he mainly, believes in. And it started with God is real, there are two genders, human flourishing requires fossil fuels, reverse racism is racism, open border is no border, things like that, just common sense issues. His basic fundamental beliefs are just common sense. And I think Kennedy, the funny thing is, he's as close to a Democrat that I could ever see voting for in the recent history of time, because he comes up with, he has reasonable, except for then they blow up with these things, they say he's anti-vax. Most of his family's vaxxed. It's just the media, again, twists and tries to push his vaccine thing to be more than it actually is. I don't agree with all of his vaccine issues, but, he's made good points on some of them, especially COVID, which I always called in and talked about how crazy that was. But anyway, those were my points.
He is really, okay, thanks for your call. Mark, you want to comment?
Yeah, I just want to say that, this critique of the media, Bruce, you and I, and on the panel, we've talked about this over time, but what scares me most these days is we can't even ask questions. Right. We try to raise an issue, ask a question. I said regarding vaccines and all that, I don't think it's wrong to say, well, are these effective? Are they killing people? Are they injuring people? Right. I want a government, I want a media that asks these questions and gets the evidence. I think that's the way things should be. And we need a strong, independent, aggressive journalist, fourth estate, happening in the country, and I just don't see it. The commercial media is a failure.
What are your friends and neighbors and colleagues and students? What are they saying about Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? Are they talking about him, or have they bought the trash line that the national media has painted him with?
It depends on the media they're watching. Right. So I've got some family members who like him and watch him, through alternative media. Right. But on the commercial media, I mean, you would think he was the most horrible, unreasonable.
Well, and he doesn't understand it even. He'll say, I can't believe, the coverage I'm getting in Vanity Fair and the New York Times. He just doesn't understand it, but they think he's the devil. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have very intelligent friends and neighbors who don't know anything, literally nothing, about what is going on with Joe Biden and the bank accounts. Mm-hmm. Nothing.
Yeah. Right. No, it's a very challenging situation we're in, but again, I think it's where democracy can really fail. We can really see it fail, and we can watch it. Unfortunately, I think we're watching it fail right now. I'm Bruce DuMont, back shortly from Beyond the Beltway.
At Jersey Mike's, you can elevate any sub by getting the juice. Red wine vinegar and an olive oil blend. It's how a Jersey Mike's sub gets its exquisite zing and how bites get boosted. The juice adds a certain something extra, an exclamation on top of the freshly sliced meats and toppings. the kind of exclamation you can eat. Order Jersey Mike's subs on our mobile app and get delivery right to your home or pick up from your nearest Jersey Mike's sub location. Jersey Mike's, be a sub above.
Today, millions of people all across America are building a life in recovery from addiction and mental illness, helping themselves
and helping each other, with friends, family, and community lending their strength and support.
Join the Voices for Recovery.
Together, we are stronger.
For 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral for mental and substance use disorders, for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
I'll be here to hear what's on your mind.
Kids want to share what's going on in their lives with the adults around them. Parents, grandparents, teachers, coaches, and more. They want to know you're listening, and they want to listen to you. They want your input and guidance, early and often, on all kinds of topics. When it comes to a serious subject like underage drinking, they want to know your expectations, as well as how and why as a young person they should avoid alcohol. How you talk about it will change as your child grows, but the important thing is to talk about it. Not just once for an hour when you think the time is right, but in 60 one-minute conversations and more that are part of your everyday talks. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
When you need me, I'll be by your side.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man, you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. That's doihaveprediabetes.org.
Wait, did they just say 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes? That's 33.33333% of adults. That means it could be me, my boss, or my boss's boss, or me, my favorite sister, or my other sister. That's 7 members of my 21-person romantic book club. Wait, the 1 in 3 could be me, my karaoke partner Carol, or my karaoke enemy Jeff. I'm gonna take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
Bruce DuMont back, and I want to just close off tonight by bringing back to the focus the discussion, the timetable for the various trials that lie before us as a nation and before Donald Trump. And here are some of the dates, and I want to just share them with you. These are the Trump indictments. These are the proposed trial dates. They are not locked in yet, but the 2020 election interference trial, which is a federal trial, Jack Smith wants to start that on January 2nd of 2024. The Georgia election interference trial, which is a state trial, they're looking at March 4th of 2024 to start that trial. The New York hush money involving Stormy Daniels, that has a proposed start date of March 25th of 2024. And the classified documents case, which is a federal case, also part of Jack Smith's involvement, that is scheduled to start on May 20th of 2024. So those are the dates. If Donald Trump is running for president of the United States, he's going to try to run for president and show up for all those cases where he's got to be in court. Is there any way that these trials can any one of these trials could start and finish in a short period of time, Judith?
Not based on what I see.
What's generally the timetable?
Well, look, I mean, this thing in Georgia, wherever it's, if there's a lot of motion practice, there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen there. I don't see it starting March 4th. I mean, I really don't. Jack Smith has said he says he wants to invoke the speedy trial rule speedy trial rule is for defendants, not for prosecutors who are trying to knock out a presidential candidate.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that trial is going to start that date. His attorneys are working on trying to get a different date.
What about in Florida? There's an attempt, or at least it's been suggested, that the Trump team is going to make a motion to move it to a federal court.
Georgia.
I'm sorry, Georgia.
Yeah.
I misspoke.
Well, so first of all, if that actually happens, if somebody files a motion, they said this belongs in the federal court, there's at least a couple of months that'll go by before a judge makes a decision about it. I don't think that that's an immediately appealable offense, but it will definitely screw up her timeline, whatever it is. There's a bunch of motions that are going to happen in all of these cases, okay? Perhaps except for the one in New York. But these federal cases, there's a lot of motion practice. These trials, I do not believe, are going to actually happen on these dates. I don't think Trump thinks they're going to happen on these dates. I don't think his lawyers think they're going to happen on these dates. And we have to wait and see. There's a lot of things go on in the courtroom before you get to a trial, like in front of a jury.
Getting back again to the first segment, I want to get everybody's response to it, but Judith, I want you to respond to first.
Okay.
Since what people are seeing on television now are lawyers for one side, or members of the House Investigations Committee, some of whom are lawyers, some of whom are not.
Mm-hmm.
But again, there's a lot of I'm going to say legal mumbo jumbo is what I would, as a layman, that's the way I would describe it. So they're going to be seeing this between now and November of next year. And I'm wondering, as all this stuff plays out, with lots of lawyering going on back there, out in the body politic, is the profession of lawyer going to be held in a higher esteem or lower esteem at the end of this battle? Because people are going to be dealing with it all day. They're going to have to make their decisions based on basically a lack of the law. But again, they're like a jury. They gotta follow the bouncing ball and invest some time to find out what the real facts are, not just give a knee-jerk reaction because of your political persuasion. But what about the profession of the lawyer?
Okay, so I firmly believe that the profession of the lawyer has suffered tremendously over the last several years. You have a situation where none of the big firms will represent Donald Trump. I know of at least one lawyer who was fired the day after she represented Donald Trump in a situation by her big firm. I'm not going to go into who or what. There's been a tremendous problem in the legal profession, similar to the kind of problem that you're seeing in the medical profession over the COVID stuff. And I don't know if the profession is going to be able to recover from this in the minds of the public, all right? Because whatever respect people had for lawyers, people don't like lawyers. They want to bury lawyers at the bottom of the sea and all that sort of stuff. But when you need a lawyer, you want to have a lawyer, right? I think the legal profession has suffered tremendously, has become politicized like every other institution in this country, and it's not a good situation. I'd like to make one little point. John Adams, one of the founders, for those of you who know a little bit about this, represented British soldiers who were accused of killing American citizens in a riot in Boston, and he won that trial. Okay, he put his life and his career on the line to do that, and he was anti-British. So we don't have lawyers like that right now, except for the few who are representing Donald Trump and taking their legal profession in their hands when they do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, the public is also learning about the cost of what it takes to hire an attorney, because we're now in the tens of millions of dollars already.
Right.
And again, Donald Trump is reaching out to ask the average person to continue to contribute to his campaign so that he can continue to pay his defense lawyers. But that's gonna become more of a challenge as that story becomes more and more known. And I think it's one of those stories that is becoming more well-known because it's one that the mainstream media likes to talk about. Judith Sherwin, thank you very much for joining us on your birthday.
Thank you.
We also want to wish a happy birthday to Maureen Garrity, who is celebrating her 75th birthday, a regular listener to this program, Lieutenant Colonel Clay Novak. And Clay, thank you very much for joining us this evening and talking about your book, which is Keep Fighting, Keep Shooting. It's a
keep moving, keep shooting.
Keep moving, keep shooting. That's the book. Clay Novak, we thank you very much. Mark Costello, thank you very much. It's always nice to represent the Italian-Norwegian community on this program. And also, Rush Darwish, thank you very much for offering your perspective as well. I'm Bruce DuMont. Thanks to our good friend, Fritz Goldman, for assistance in the production of this program. And again, tune in for the debate.
Going back